Hi everybody, let's talk about how to deal with trauma properly using brain retraining. Hey, I'm Melissa with The Simple Life Wife, and I make videos about rewiring your brain. If you're into that, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So I have made a video before about trauma and how to deal with it, I think properly. I can't remember how I phrased it. And I do recommend watching that video as well as this one because they go together. So this is just kind of a follow-up to that one. I wanted to tell you about an experience I had recently that I feel was very healing, and just a few tips and tricks for how to properly deal with trauma and why you should with your healing journey in brain retraining. So something I've become aware of recently is, just the past year of brain retraining by trial and error, is you really shouldn't deal with your trauma right away. I'm not saying you shouldn't deal with trauma. I'm just saying you shouldn't do it before you've done some other heart work or brain work, however you want to say it. And I think it's important to realize that, because following some advice, I started dealing with trauma, and you'll hear about it in the video I had previously made on it. And I started going back through all my memory of all the hard things, and I was writing it all out. And anyway, I ended up basically having a bit of a breakdown. I could not handle it. And it was not the best way to go about it. And I figured out, just through various resources, these are things I'm picking up from lots of different resources along the way. Bria Katrin is always a help to me. There's a book I'm going through right now by a doctor named Howard Schubner, Unlearn Your Pain, and it's a different form of brain retraining. His perspective is he focuses on how chronic pain that you can't attribute to like structural problems, it's all caused from past trauma that you've gone through. So it's a different take on it, but it's definitely a helpful perspective. And so I haven't gotten to the part yet of what he says to actually deal with the trauma. So again, I'm not a professional and I don't have all the answers to all these things. I'm still learning, just like you. But this is another resource for this topic. And if you're interested to learn more about this before you buy the book, because the book is like $25 or something, but to me it's really worth it. You can watch the documentary. So just look up his name if you're interested to watch the documentary. I think it's like $5 to watch the documentary, but it's a really, really good one. His last name is Schubiner. Maybe I can find a link to put in the description so you can just easily click on it. Anyway, I can't remember the name of that documentary. Hopefully I can just get it in the description for you. That's definitely worth watching. So it's a little different though than what I'm talking about, but it's obviously in the same subject area. And then more recently, just this past week, I saw a video. Have you ever heard of Primal Trust? It's a brain retraining program. I actually don't know much about it, but I watched this interview with the Primal Trust creator, and apparently she created the program after doing her own brain retraining, because she realized many of the programs out there of brain retraining, they leave out this really important element of dealing with your trauma, which I totally agree. I think it is something that needs to be dealt with. And also, just so you know, Bria Katrin also would tell you that it's important to deal with trauma as part of your healing process in order to calm your nervous system. Like, it's just an integral part of what you should be doing. But so many of the programs don't put it in. The one I went through called Limbic System Rewire, not only did they not do any sort of trauma work in the program, they in fact said, I heard the creator of that program say she actually felt it was harmful to go back and relive that stuff. So everyone has their own take on it, but personally, I think it's important to deal with the trauma because I think your body's holding on to it, and you're not really going to be able to calm your nervous system properly if you don't eventually deal with it. But so Primal Trust was created in order to deal with that aspect, kind of like an add-on for people that had already done like DNRS or something. And then you could go do Primal Trust, and basically trusting your primal instincts. When trauma comes up, you can trust that your body knows how to deal with it, and it needs to basically chew the cud of it and release it in order to calm your nervous system. And I guess since then, Primal Trust became its own brain retraining program. So that's just an element of it. And so anyway, I have not done that program, but this is just what I'm learning. But it does have like a section specifically for trauma release. Okay, catching you all up. But before I even watched that Primal Trust interview, I had a great experience last week. And you'll see from my previous video that I figured out that it was important to just let the trauma release come naturally. Don't force it, because when you force it, your body's not ready, your nervous system is not prepared to handle it, and you will actually be causing more stress on your nervous system. But when you're ready for it and your body's bringing it up over and over, your mind is bringing it up over and over, it's probably the right time to think about it. And you often don't, of course you don't want to go there. You've ignored it. You've stuffed it in a dark corner because it's a dark place to go. But if your brain keeps bringing it up and you feel safe, it's probably the right time to think through those things. So in my previous video, I talked about some different experiences with that and how it was so healing to go through it and have a really good cry. Sometimes it's just so appropriate to have a good cry. Not forced, but just feeling heard. And so when I do this, when it comes up naturally, it is very much a prayer. And I am giving up all these things, and I'm telling God my hurts, and like I can't ignore it. And it's bubbled to the surface, and I'm giving it to God. And so I'll just tell you a beautiful experience I had. I'm not going to tell you, of course, the details of the trauma that I was dealing with from my past, and a lot of times it's things trigger you to remember things. And I think you can know if you feel safe or not in order to deal with these things. And if you do, then I encourage you, it's probably the right time. Don't keep stuffing it back, because your body needs to let that go. Your brain doesn't want to hold on to that trauma anymore. So if it's a safe time for you, then maybe it's time to give it to God and let him step in and care for you through it. So more recently, within the past couple weeks, I was actually having a time of visualizing, and just, one of my standard times. And I was listening to a visualization of Bria's actually. And I don't know if it was something she said. It really had nothing to do with the visualization, but something just kept popping in my mind, and it was a hurt. And I just knew that it was right to go there. And so I just kept the guided visualization playing in the background. And it was really soothing. I think that helped me just to kind of go there in a safe way. And I brought up all the hurts surrounding that time that I was remembering. And I allowed myself to cry, and I allowed myself to feel the hurt, because the way I was brought up, I was not allowed to feel sorry for myself. There's an element where that is absolutely a good thing. You don't want to live in victimhood. But when you have a pain, you need to be allowed to say, I had a pain, and to have someone hear you. It's just like when my kids skin their knee, they come get a kiss, and I say, oh, I'm sorry. And then we move on, of course. They don't stay crying for hours. It's like, okay, time to move on. But they get that moment to feel heard and to feel like their pain was noticed, and they did actually experience pain. And so it was not the healthiest thing, the way I feel like I was taught. And I don't blame my parents. It goes back to their own trauma of how they dealt with their own pain, that kind of thing, you know? So anyway, it's just the way it was. And so I was not allowed to deal with these things. And I learned even in my adulthood, no, you don't feel sorry for yourself. You stuff it, you know? It's just not a healthy way to do it. So anyway, within a couple weeks ago, I allowed myself to feel the pain and to say that that really hurt, and that was really hard for me, and I felt uncared for and sad. And actually I spanned like a good 6+ months of this situation, and I just kept telling God, and this really hurt, and this I felt so uncared for, and I was just allowing myself to cry, and I was just imagining God holding me and listening. Like, I'm so sorry that happened, I'm so sorry, I would have never acted like that. That's something Bria taught me to do too, is just imagine God saying, I'm sorry they treated you like that. I am not like that. I don't approve of that. Like, that's not okay. It is so healing to have God come in those situations and just love on you, because that's what you need. You need to feel heard and that you did experience some sort of pain. And anyway, it was really just a beautiful time of being able to cry on God's shoulder. And I didn't even realize it was something I needed. That's often how this trauma is. You don't realize you have this pain stuffed in because you ignored it for so long. Yet, it's weighing on your nervous system. So if it does come up and you're feeling safe in your situation, then I encourage you that it is a healthy thing to deal with it. So that was my experience. But I would say, in addition to that, after recently watching the Primal Trust creator talking, she put it into words that I felt just kind of, her words helped me frame it better in my mind of an appropriate way to deal with trauma using brain retraining. You don't approach trauma first. She said she did like 10 years of talk therapy, you know, the best talk therapy out there. What do they call it? EDMR or something? EDMR, yeah. Anyway, but it just, because she was doing it from an unregulated nervous system, basically a fight or flight. She was in fight or flight. She just was re-traumatizing herself. Every time she regurgitated what happened in her past, she was re-traumatizing herself because she could not handle it. So the idea is you wire in safety first. So get started on your brain retraining journey first. And then as those things come up, and they should come up naturally as your body can handle them. Like, it's just something your brain, I feel like God made our brains to bring those things up in safe times. Then you deal with them. But don't start the trauma work first. Start the brain retraining work first. And then if that stuff comes up later, maybe every few months, maybe every 6 months, you have one thing come up. You know, it's not often. Probably. Everyone's experience is different, but at least with me, it's not often that I have these moments. But when I do, and I deal with it in a safe way like this, and bringing God into it, and I have a really good cry, it's so healing, and it's something I remember for the rest of my life. I can remember, you know, a good 4 or 5 times of having experiences like this, of having a very, very healing cry with God of some trauma. And I feel like it was God bringing it to the surface at the appropriate time. Okay, I'm sure I brought up a lot of questions with that. So if you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the description below. Again, I'm not an expert on it. I just wanted to tell you my experiences as I keep going with it, and hopefully it was helpful. Okay, happy brain retraining. Bye.